Hey everyone, this is Brent from the Political Christian channel. I'm going to be starting something new, and that's going to be devotionals, and I'm going to make those a little more regular or a little more on schedule than the political videos. The political videos aren't going away. I know I haven't done any videos in a very long time. I was finishing out the school semester and spending some time with the family and things like that. So and it's been really busy at work. But I'm jumping back in here. I wanted to start out with a devotional instead of the political stuff, because the political stuff's been so chaotic. It'd be really hard for me to pinpoint one story that's been going on, or I don't have the time to make like a 2-hour long video talking about all the stories that have been going on, because we have a lot of new information, a lot of crazy stuff going on, and a lot of people are missing the mark on that. But I digress. I want to do a devotional tonight instead. This devotional is based off the scripture, Matthew 5, verse 13, and it's when Jesus is explaining to the disciples that we as followers of Christ are the salt of the earth, which is a really cool concept. He goes on to say that when it loses its saltiness, what good is it? It just needs to be cast out and things like that. But I think we miss the mark when we just read into it that far, because he's describing, Jesus never makes a connection between things for no reason. There's something there in comparing us to salt. He was using that example, but he also said that we are the salt of the earth before going into that example. So he makes the statement, you are the salt of the earth. And then he goes into, if you lose your saltiness, then, what good are you, and things like that. Well, let's jump into what he means by that. What are some qualities of salt and how that compares to us and how we should be as Christians? Salt is an irritant. If you get salt in a fresh cut or something like that, it hurts. I mean, Jesus, the gospel, we are the gospel of peace, or we have the gospel of peace, the gospel of truth, but it was never supposed to not be confrontational. That's the gospel absolutely is confrontational. Jesus never sugarcoated it. He never said, you know what, I'm talking to this Roman centurion and he believes in a whole bunch of gods, so I'm going to kind of water down the message a little bit. I don't want him to feel bad about what he believes. Jesus went for the jugular. He said, this is the truth. This is the way. What are you going to do? It's pretty cold cut when he's talking to people. Which brings me to my next point, which is that sometimes as Christians, we want to push people into conversion. We want to seek people out. We want to spend all of our time and energy. We're like, you know what? I'm going to get this person for Jesus. I'm going to go after them and kill them with kindness all the time. And you might notice that they're not receptive at all. You never make any headway with them. Sometimes you do, but sometimes you don't. When you look at Jesus' example in the New Testament, when someone approached him and said, hey, this is what this is my situation. What do I do to get in the kingdom of heaven? First one that pops in mind, of course, is that rich young ruler that came to Jesus and said, I've kept all the commandments. What do I lack? And Jesus said, go sell everything you own and give it all to the poor and come follow me. And the guy walked away really sad because he knew that a nerve had just been struck with him. His wealth and stuff was everything to him. Now, did Jesus chase after him? Did Jesus go, oh, wait, let's talk about this. Let's talk about how we can do this. He didn't. It wasn't the right time for that guy. He wasn't at a place, that rich young ruler, he wasn't at a place where he could accept the gospel for what it was at that time. He needed it modified. I believe he probably knew what his problem was when he approached Jesus. He probably wanted some type of public affirmation or something like that, but him walking away sad like that and Jesus not pursuing him, so often when we tell people the truth and they don't want to accept it, we continuously go after them. Now, I'm not saying that we should dub everyone as a lost cause that doesn't just drop everything they're doing and go, oh yeah, Jesus is awesome, I'm going to be a Christian. What I am saying is a lot of us probably spend more energy than we should on people when we're missing the bigger picture of all the other people that are around us that we could be reaching and we could be being kind to and things like that. The Christianity thing, it goes back to something that I've always told my students when I was a youth pastor, and that's The biggest way to reach people for Jesus is to live like you're living for Jesus, to actually do it, to walk that you talk about. If you don't walk that you're talking about, no one's going to care and no one's going to believe that what you have is better than what they have. You have Jesus, they have, I can do whatever I want and feel good, and that's okay. Yep, sometimes life is hard, but I can do what I want and it'll be okay. And tomorrow's a new day. And so many times we shoot ourselves in the foot as Christians because we can't walk that walk and then turn around and tell people it's seen as the world as hypocritical. Now we know that we make mistakes and that we're not perfect and we're going to mess up from time to time, sometimes all the time, depending on who you are. But the world doesn't see it as that. The world sees it as we have the standard and we are pushing the standard on you, but you messed up the standard, so everything that you have to say is invalid. They're not looking at the fact that we are trying to represent an all-powerful and perfect God. They're looking at the very powerless and imperfect people that are in the equation, and they make that connection to God through you, which is why it's important that you live the way you're supposed to, that you live by the Bible, the gospel. You love one another. You pray for people. You're an encouragement to people when they need it, because that is how we're going to be able to reach them. Now we have to drop a truth bomb. Sometimes that goes back to the salt being irritating, but we can't focus in on one particular person or one group of people and just keep hammering it. Now, obviously, if you're called to homeless ministry and you're ministering at homeless, you're doing what God's asked you to do. I'm talking about from day-to-day life. If you have a family member, some people beat themselves up because they can't reach that one family member. You know what? You've probably sown a lot of seeds, and you might not be the person that can bring them to Christ. They might just not be receptive to the message through you. Besides that, it's not your job to save them. We have to remember that. It's not our job to save people. It's our job to give them the gospel, to give them the tools to be saved. And then the salvation comes from Jesus. It doesn't come from me. It doesn't come from you. It comes from Jesus. There's nothing that you can say or do if someone is not ready for that can do it. It's so stupid easy for someone to accept Jesus. But we feel like it's the hardest thing sometimes because people don't do it. It's not because you might not be giving the message correctly or anything like that. It's just sometimes people aren't ready. They're not in a place that they feel that they need it. We know that they need it all the time. They don't feel like they need it, and that's not up to us. We can't force them. We can be irritating, and especially if someone knows the difference in right and wrong, we can be very irritating. Another thing that salt does is it reveals those fresh wounds, like I mentioned before. It's an irritant. If you get salt in a cut and it hurts. You ever been in the ocean? If you've ever been in the ocean, when you have like a little cut, or you didn't know there was a cut and then you felt it when you got in there, that saltiness in the water, it really messes with that injury. What we have to remember is that salt isn't what's healing that injury. It's pointing it out. And just like that in life, as us being the salt of the earth, we aren't meant to heal other people's wounds. That's not our job. And sometimes we take that upon ourselves. That's the job of Jesus. And, being the salt of the earth, there's only so much we can do. We can point out the wounds. We can be irritating about them. But the actual healing is going to come from Christ himself. It's not going to come from you. It's not going to come from me. It's not going to come from your pastor. It's not going to come from name whatever mega church local pastor that you have, Anley Stanley, Mark Rutland, all these huge pastors that are, that's a couple here in the Atlanta area where I live, but everyone's got their local huge pastors. They can't heal those wounds for them. Now, can they facilitate a conversation? Sure. Can you facilitate a conversation? Probably. Can that conversation lead through some breakthroughs in a relationship with Jesus, who can then heal the wounds? Absolutely. But you have to remember that the actual healing that takes place isn't up to us. It's not up to us. We can only point out the wounds. We can only make them apparent. We can't be the healer. Did Jonah heal the people of Nineveh when he went and proclaimed his message that God told him to give? No, the healing didn't come from him. The healing came from God, and it was God who chose to not destroy that city and those people. And Jonah was used in that, but he was only the messenger. We are the messengers with this message. We're not meant to fix people. So that's for somebody out there. There's people out there that are running themselves ragged and just pouring out from themselves and spinning their gears. And it's not that it's a bad thing. It's that they're exhausting themselves and they don't need to do all that. Trust in God. Go out, follow Jesus' example. He told people the truth, and they either accepted the truth or they needed time, and they left. He didn't chase after them. He didn't tell his entourage, "Hey, wait just 1 second. I'm gonna go talk. We're gonna do sidebar with this guy. We're gonna go follow this guy back to his hometown, and we're gonna keep working on him, guys, because by golly, we're gonna get this one." No, Jesus saw the big picture, and he knew that if he spent all of his energy on one person, now Jesus is the good shepherd, he'll leave the flock to get the one, but in his time on earth, if he spent all his time chasing that young ruler, trying to convince him to give up his wealth, how many of other lives that Jesus was able to touch, of the people that were ready and accepting to his message, would he have missed out on in his ministry had he done that? We don't know. We don't know a number. We don't know the number of how many people he actually healed. We don't have that. But he touched countless lives then and throughout time since then. So I would think that he would be the most wise example to follow when it comes to those things. So anyway, go out there, be salt, be irritating. I'm sure I'm pretty irritating. If you follow any of my social media, I'm pretty darn irritating sometimes. But if we are silent in the face of adversity, if we're silent in the face of immorality and in the sin of those around us, then it almost makes us accomplices to what they're doing. So we have to be willing to call out lies when we see lies, the truth when we see the truth, and call it the truth, not call out the truth. Can't really call out the truth; it's the truth. But we also have to be ready to be irritating when needed. This is Brent. This has been the first devotional. If you liked it, hit subscribe down below, hit like, share it with your friends. This is going to be a regular thing, and I'm not sure. I'm going to decide probably this week if it's going to be a weekly, if it's a monthly, what I'm going to do with this. Probably a weekly is what I'm leaning towards, but I don't want to take away too much time from my family. My kids are very young right now, so that's a very important time. But I'm just going to see how it goes. You guys have a good night. God bless.